Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. We're just entering our first week of November, which means that the holidays are just around the corner. We have finished off with Halloween and our selections of interesting Halloween games. And now we're going to head into the holidays. Now, what does that mean for you and me? Well, sales. Typically in the last few years, as the board game industry has grown, there have been a large amount of avenues for getting some really great deals over the holidays. Not only are some of the best games being shipped near that time, but also there are sales going on locally and online that you may be interested in. And this is kind of a heads up ahead of time before we get into Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Always you'll find something on Amazon, usually buy two games, get one free or something, but you're going to find a lot of deals. Now, a caveat on that, a lot of the deals you find are not always going to be the best games. Obviously, that could be real everywhere, but with board games in particular, it's important to be really mindful of what you're getting. When you see a screaming deal, make sure that it is something you really want. That said, there is opportunity because especially local game stores that are doing well will a lot of times be ramping up. They'll do a summer sale and then they'll do it right before Thanksgiving, kind of like maybe some undocumented sales, because they want to bring in all the new stuff. They probably already have started to bring in all the new stuff. So come Black Friday, if you live in the Puget Sound area of Washington State, Mox Boarding House, Zulu's Cafe, Around the Table Games, just to name a few, will have some great deals that you'll want to probably take advantage of, or usually some great promotionals. So take advantage of those, and you know, for Christmas and stuff. I will be doing another top 10 games for the holidays like I do every year, and that'll be coming up probably the first week of December. And there's some really interesting stuff coming out. Essen had over 500 new games available this year. That's the big trade show, or Essen Spiel, big trade show in Germany, and all of those are trickling our way to, well, us. So on that, let's talk games. Okay, what am I playing today? Well, I finished Massive Darkness a little bit and set it aside. I was enjoying it, and I want to go back and play the campaign again, although, truth be told, there are a couple issues with the campaign, but the game is just so glorious. But I am playing Tiny Epic Quest. And Tiny Epic Quest is something that I have enjoyed probably best in the line of Tiny Epic games. There's Tiny Epic Defenders, Tiny Epic Western, Tiny Epic Galaxies. But Tiny Epic Quest is kind of Zelda in a box in some ways. It looks and feels like it. There's some stuff about it. But in other ways, it's actually, well, kind of a puzzle. Especially if you're playing it solo. Playing it with others, it's interesting. Playing it solo, it's definitely a puzzle. Not typically my like, but for some reason it resonates and it's well with me. And that's what I'm playing this week. And with that, let's just go into the, well, 3 games of the week. Okay. First we have Revolver. That's right, Revolver and its predecessor, well, Revolver 2 and its predecessor, Revolver, are nice tin box again. Tin boxes that cover a game, a 2-player game, with a cowboy western theme. Now, there are quite a few games, and someday I'm going to do a whole just layout of, like, here's all the possible cowboy western themed games, because there's not a ton of them, but there are a lot of interesting ones that I like. Some are really complex, and some are just brain dead easy. Revolver 2 is more on the easy side. However, it is by no means a pushover, and it is an interesting game. You are really reliving a story. In both Revolver and Revolver 2, you're living a story, either as the bandits or as the law. And what's intriguing about this is it really does follow almost a chronological timeline as you play across different locations. You know, the law chasing after the bad guys, you're losing fighters, you're fighting here. Really interesting dynamic in that you feel like you're immersed in a story. And if you're the law, you want to stop that story by getting rid of the bad guys. And if you're the bad guys, you want to keep that story going all the way to Mexico. So interesting one. I'd give it actually a 7. I would play this almost all the time. I think whoever I played it with has really enjoyed it, especially for the thematic nature that such a simple and sort of linear game could really come off pulling off almost a spaghetti western story. Very interesting. Yeah, like, yeah, pretty cool. Now, the surprise that I enjoyed is I finally, after 3 years, have gotten a chance to look at Ashes. Rise of the Phoenixborn. Well, imagine Magic the Gathering, but not Magic the Gathering. In fact, imagine that you took Magic the Gathering and turned it into a small back and forth, almost airsoft gunfight of a fantasy nature. And you will have Ashes. It's not a collectible card game the way Magic the Gathering is, which is something some of you have probably already heard of. In fact, Magic the Gathering. However, it comes with pre-packaged sets. You can create your own decks of different cards, but the preset ones are actually pretty thematic. You are taking micro turns, and that's what's interesting is that in Magic, oftentimes, and as we played this week, it became clear to a lot of us that this is kind of one of the things we liked about it. Magic the Gathering tends to be a back and forth. I do a whole bunch of things. I mean, playing Magic, you're playing cards, playing creatures, attacking your opponent, and over time you're gonna have like this whole sort of like I do my turn and I do 6, 7 things and I'm rearranging and attacking and preparing and whatever. Ashes has that same feel, although it's very intriguing in that the micro turns that you get one main action and maybe a side action. And that's it. Then you flip flop, and then your opponent gets one main action, one side action. Why is that subtlety so important? Because it gives a much more integrated feel, a much more interlacing of actions, so that instead of like interrupts and an instance that stops somebody cold, you're going to get to finish your turn, but you're also going to have a reaction to that very quickly from your opponent. And the iconography was really nice, really easy to understand. And once you got into the flow of the game, it was like, yep, I know it, I got this well. Yeah, I would definitely put this as an 8.5. I think this has got a lot of legs to it, and with the extra character packs that they've already released, I think this has some real undeserved acumen, or sort of unappreciated acumen. We'll put it that way. I don't think people realize just how good of a game this is. So, Ashes: Rise of the Phoenixborn. Finally, we have Pinata. Alright, we're going to be, in this game, you're going to be basically trying to lay cards in sort of a way that, that helps you win Pinata fights. First off, there is some background on why this comes off a little the way it does. There was a game from Stephen Glenn called Balloon Cup. And in Balloon Cup, you were basically taking cubes blindly from a bag, and you were playing cards on your side, your opponent plays cards on the other side, against these balloons, these like balloons going up, balloons going down, and so you'd play your cards ascending order and descending order, and you would be trying to win these trophies based on balloons and color. And so it was probably one of my favorites, one of the very first games I introduced my wife to, and it was a big hit because it was so pleasant and yet cutthroat. Because you could play cards on the other opponent's side too, which technically there was some murkiness over whether that was really allowed, but the Ultimate Published version did allow that, so you could really mess with your opponent by placing just the wrong card on their side to stop them from being able to acquire a trophy. And it wasn't a perfect game, but it certainly was an enjoyable game, and it definitely felt fun and interesting. Watching hot air balloons. Pinata tries to capture that with pinatas, but it just doesn't work. For one thing, pinatas make no sense. Like pinatas that go up in order, pinatas that go down. Okay, I don't know. You can come up with some sort of lore to help justify it, but it doesn't make sense. The other thing is the cards are so bright and vibrant and vivid that you would think it would be cool. It's not. Instead, you're finding that the cubes, the colored cubes going on really bright colored cards is horrid. Horrid. I mean, this has got to be like purgatory for colorblind people. It is terrible. And so this game, despite the fact that I was hoping it would be just another interesting variant, really fell flat, and we're just going to keep Balloon Cup. I would give this a 3, maybe a 4 if you just really like vibrant colors. Not a bad game. It does the same thing Balloon Cup does, but why not get Balloon Cup and have, a little bit less eye strain? So those are my 3 games for the week. And that's about it. It's kind of a quiet week now that the trade shows are over. But we are ramping up, and like I said, I'll be working on my top 10 games for the holidays. Once again, don't forget about the Board Game Geek Secret Santa that I mentioned a couple weeks ago. If you go to BoardGameGeek.com and register, you can be part of the Global Secret Santa Board Game Exchange, which is always a hoot. Anyway, that's it for today, and we'll see you next week on Harebrained Games.